The 20th annual Backlash took place in St. Louis, Missouri at the Enterprise Center. I decided to skip the Countdown to Backlash show, had no interest in watching it. I do like Jackie Renman and Kathy Kelly. It's just all the other male panelists on that show annoy me, so I had no interest. Now, we started the show off with various wrestlers arriving in the building, and our first match was a Fatal 4-Way match for the United States Championship. First person out was LA Knight, who gets a big pop in St. Louis. Then Drew McIntyre gets a decent pop. Then Damian Priest, much less of a pop. I felt like he was easily the least over of the four in this match. And then out comes Jacob Fatu, gets a big pop. Fans really into Fatu. We hear Fatu chants. Have to say, match was super fast paced. It was started a little bit slower than the WrestleMania Fatal 4-Way, but the difference between this and that was this had a lot more time than that did. It had almost twice the time I checked. And you had a fast paced match as it picked up. Each guy got their own moment to shine. And we got various finishers. I think LA must have hit multiple BFTs. We saw Drew hit several Claymores. We saw a South of Heaven chokeslam, I think, by Priest. And there was also a moment where I think it was Priest got hit by Drew with the Claymore, and I think he fell on LA Knight. And it was a close call, but eventually the pin was broken up. And it was actually kind of a cool throwback to Backlash 07 when John Cena pinned Randy Orton in a Fatal 4-Way match after he got hit with the Sweet Chin Music by Shawn Michaels, and he just fell on him for the win. But they didn't bring that up. But that was a cool throwback, even if it was unintentional. There's as I said, series of finishers, but then there was a moment where it looked like Drew was about to win. And by the way, in addition to the Claymores, he hit a whole bunch of Future Shock DDTs, it seemed like, in this match. But there's a moment where he's about to win, but once again, Damian Priest pulls the referee out, so he screws Drew McIntyre again. This feud doesn't continue, even though Drew beat him at WrestleMania. Priest gets him again. He costs him the U.S. title, and they just go and brawl. And then we still have Fatu and LA Knight back in the ring, and they're both down in the ring, even though they had this almost a back and forth match. And basically, it becomes two separate matches where it feels like it's Fatu and LA Knight having a match in the ring, where where Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre are having a street fight. So kind of like WrestleMania again, and they're brawling in the crowd, and we go with them for a while. And we just kind of forget about the other two in the ring. And they fight on top of these two production boxes. It looks like Drew's trying to superplex him, but then Priest fights out of it. And then he hits a South of Heaven chokeslam off two production boxes through two tables. And Priest went through the table. It seemed like Drew went through the table too, but a lot of his body, it felt like just bounced off the concrete. And Drew looked like he got hurt bad here. He looked like he was in a bad way. There's reports that he was checked out. I hope Drew's all right. I hope he doesn't have a concussion or something, because it looked like a bad fall. It didn't look safe the way they did it, because I felt like they had to go on more of a distance than usual, and it was just a nasty spot. So both McIntyre and Damian Priest are taken out of the match. We go back into LA Knight and Fatu, and LA Knight has Jacob Fatu set up on the announce table, and he's getting ready for a top rope splash through the announce booth, which is going to be an awesome spot. And all of a sudden, we see Solo Sikoa pull Jacob Fatu off. LA Knight's furious. He's going after him. He's ready to go after Solo, but then he gets jumped in the crowd by someone, and it turns out to be Jeff Cobb. It took me a while to figure it out, and they kept saying the new free agent, and then I found out, on social media, it's Jeff Cobb. He beats down LA Knight, throws him into the ring post a few times. LA Knight's basically done. He's in the ring. Jacob Fatu recovers. He doesn't understand what's going on. He looks at Solo. He looks at Jeff Cobb. I'm sure he knows them both, but he's confused. Eventually just gets in the ring, and he hits his moonsault onto LA Knight. Gets the pin, 1, 2, 3. Jacob Fatu retains the U.S. title in a very good Fatal 4-Way match opener. Damn good match, a lot of fun, really fast-paced, good spots, dangerous parts, and a good reveal at the end. And it was kind of similar to last year. I think the opening match at Backlash had Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga win a tag match. I think it was against Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. And I think that's when they introduced Tonga Loa, who turned out to be a huge bust, by the way. But kind of here we have a new, we can't call it a bloodline member, but you have a new member of the Anoa'i family, the Fatu family now, dynasty, I guess you can call it that, since we don't call bloodline anymore. The bloodline's basically dead. So after that, we get an announcement that Night of Champions is going to take place on June 28th in Saudi Arabia. I believe Saudi Arabia this year is only getting one PLE. Usually it's two. I think the thing is next year it's going to be three because they're getting the Rumble. So they're not going to have the Crown Jewel show that's in Australia this year, but I assume they're getting one this year because they're going to get three next year. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm pissed off they're getting the Rumble. The Rumble is going to suck next year. I'm not going to lie. I'm not looking forward to that show at all. So we see the city of St. Louis. We see some of the buildings, the architecture, and everyone wants to see the big arc. That's the whole symbol of St. Louis. We see the arc many times, but we got to see the arc. Next, we go to the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Lyra Valkyria defending against Becky Lynch, who came out first, followed by the champ. And I liked how the match started off. Lyra got to showcase some really cool submission moves. And I like this moment where she has Becky Lynch up and she's lifting her. And Lyra's just so jacked and Becky's skinny. Just looks like Lyra would just kick her ass in a real fight. I'm not going to lie. It's just how big and jacked Lyra's legs are. And but she has Becky in it. I don't know what this move is. I've seen it done before, just not recently, where it's kind of like a reverse Boston Crab in a way, where she's lifting her and she's like swinging Becky Lynch. It's such a cool move. It takes real power to do it, and we don't see it often. It's like a reverse Boston Crab while swinging someone. It's hard to explain. Then she gets a surfboard. I know what that is. And that looked great too. And she's punishing Becky. Lyra's really showcased here. And then Becky got some heat on her. She took the match over for a while, but the fans were really into Lyra Valkyria, and I was surprised. After WrestleMania, I thought, all right, the fans are just going to boo Lyra out of the building, and Becky's going to be the cool heel. Didn't happen. Fans like Lyra Valkyria. Becky Lynch had some support. People liked Becky Lynch still. There was some Let's Go Becky chants, but I felt like the crowd probably was 80-20 in favor of Lyra, and Becky's still a much bigger star, and that's a positive reflection on Lyra Valkyria. And there were multiple kickouts here. I can't tell you how many times Lyra must have kicked out of the manhandle slam. It must have been twice. It felt like 3 times. Like, there were so many near falls. There was times where I thought Becky would win. Becky did get out of the night, the night wing, but that was after the referee was distracted. And going back to that, what happened was the referee was distracted because Becky Lynch, earlier in the match, ripped off the ring, the turnbuckle pad, and then it exposed the steel. And we see this multiple times where there were several teases into that they were going to do. Someone's going to get rammed into the post or to the exposed steel, and it went on for a while. And I was just kind of thinking, this is almost distracting me from the match because it's so obvious this is going to play into the finish, but it actually did not. There was a moment where I think Lyra missed the steel and she went into the middle one. Then she got hit with the pump handles down, but she kicked out. And then the whole thing actually got set up when Becky first brought in a chair in the ring, and then that's when she exposed the turnbuckle. Besides that spot, which I think Lyra was supposed to go in, and if she hit the exposed turnbuckle, then got with the pump handle slam, I think everyone would have thought that's over, but it didn't happen that way, and Lyra ended up kicking out anyway, which was surprising. Now, the Nightwing spot is when Becky kicked out after Jessica Carter, the referee, was distracted with the ring pad, and she came back and Becky kicked out. Lyra actually got out of the disarmer a couple of times, which was a good showcase for her. They had multiple counters into submission holds, a lot of different roll-ups. Eventually, Lyra just pins Becky Lynch with a roll-up, and she gets the win. She doesn't celebrate at all because right after the match, Becky beats her down. She puts her in disarmer. She locks it in, and eventually a whole bunch of referees have to drag her off. I thought Bayley was going to come back. I thought we'd see her return, and she'd go after Becky. That didn't happen here, but Lyra did win. She got the win over Becky Lynch. All I thought was, we should have seen this at WrestleMania. I wish this was the WrestleMania match. Lyra and Becky for the Women's Intercontinental title. Lyra wins on a big stage, kind of like with Tiffy beating Charlotte. This match was way better than that, but it would have been a big showcase for Lyra to beat her at WrestleMania. I keep saying this over and over again. This last time I'm going to say this. I thought WrestleMania, we should, in addition to Tiffany beating Charlotte, we should have had Lyra beat Becky, and then we should have had Roxanne Perez beat Bayley. We should have got those 3 matches. We only got one of them. But I think this feud will continue. I think eventually Becky's going to get this title, but I'm glad Lyra won, and this was her best showing, in my opinion, in terms of a star-making performance. She's probably had some better matches, and this was still very good, but I think in terms of having a big signature win on the pay-per-view, this was Lyra's best moment so far on the main roster. Next, we went to the Intercontinental Championship. Dominik Mysterio defending against Penta. Fans are really into Dirty Dom, but they weren't booing Penta or anything. They just liked Dom a lot more. Dom wrestles as a total babyface, and there's a cool spot where Penta hit the Mexican Destroyer on the apron, and it looks like that's it for Dirty Dom. And immediately, as I figured they'd probably come out after that spot, Judgment Day ran down, and Judgment Day initially came out with Dom during his entrance, but they left into the locker room after, and they didn't come to the ring with him. They just went right back. You knew they were going to come out eventually later in the match, and that's what they did. After they did that, you have the referee distracted by, I believe, Carlito, and you had this thing where JD is holding up Penta, and Finn's about to hit him with like a clothesline, but instead he goes for a chair. He swings the chair and he teases it, but it doesn't actually do anything, and Penta gets out of it. And the whole thing was Finn hesitated. And they're trying to build up more tension between Finn and Dom, which eventually Finn will turn on Dom. Or maybe Dom turns on Finn and they kick him out. After that happened, the Judgment Day were found out by the referee, and he ordered JD McDonough, Carlito, and Finn Balor all to the back. And once they're arguing with the referee, the ref has his back to them, and then Penta jumps over the referee, takes out all of the Judgment Day with a great dive to the outside, and he goes back in the ring, but the referee is still distracted, and once Penta's on the top rope, the ref doesn't see this. El Grande Americano appears, and he had a steel aluminum plate in his mask, and he headbutts Penta. Penta's taken out. No one knows what's happening. El Grande hides by the apron, so the ref doesn't see him. Then Dom hits the frog splash, pins Penta. Dom retains the Intercontinental title. Overall, I thought a good match. Not a great match. Yeah, compared to the previous 2 matches, it was probably the weakest. And overall on the show, this is probably the weakest match, which was surprising, but I still thought it was decent. I still thought it was a fine match. They preview Raw tomorrow night, and then they show us some matches for Saturday night's main event. Obviously, we all know it's Jey Uso and Logan Paul. They show us some more still shots of the city of St. Louis. And then we go to Gunther against Pat McAfee. So McAfee makes his entrance wearing a jersey reading, I think it was Matthew Fracker or something like that. I don't know what the reference is. It's something to do with St. Louis. McAfee always does that. If you know you're from St. Louis, you know the reference, you can tell me in the chat. Tell me in the comments. Gunther comes out next, and here's what I think. Okay, this was a spectacle. It was an entertaining match. It seems like most people I've seen online seem to really like the match, which was good. It's a match where I feel as though I have mixed feelings. Okay. I felt that although it was entertaining, although they did convince me in a few times that, holy shit, is McAfee actually going to win? And they got me worried in a way because maybe it's because it's still Triple H, even though he's in WWE. If Triple H was booking WWE for like the last 15 years, you would never think this could happen. But because it's still the company, it's not really Triple H's fault. But because it's still Vince McMahon, it's still in the shadow, Vince would book Gunther to lose to Pat McAfee. And it's something where I don't fully trust Triple H yet because of that. I think as time goes on, the thought of Gunther losing to Pat is totally unfeasible, but because it's Vince McMahon's, we're still living in his shadow, it kind of brings that doubt in your mind. And I know if Vince was booking Gunther and Goldberg, we all know who Vince is going to put over in that match. I have to say this about Gunther. He changed his body image. He changed his look. He lost a lot of weight, and he still is a lot smaller than he used to be. However, I noticed he's put some pounds on, and I don't like that. I think he needs to lose that weight. I don't think it does him any favors, and maybe because of his weight gain is why this match was as competitive as it was. I probably not, but I'm just saying I think it's in his best interest to lose the weight again. So Pat did get a lot of offense. There were some really cool near falls. It was exciting, but at the same time I'm thinking, why is this so competitive? Gunther shouldn't be in a match as close with an announcer, and since he's been such a dominant force in WWE since he came to the main roster 3 years ago. So here's some good highlights. Pat was chopped to hell. His chest was red. He took a beating. He was chopped repeatedly. Gunther took some chops too, I have to say. But Pat was so red, and I'm thinking to myself, why didn't Jey Uso agree to have himself chopped during that match at WrestleMania last month? That would have gotten him more over with people like me. But he took 1 or 2 chops. Pat took several chops. His chest is red. It's as red as a strawberry. He just took a beating. And that really, I have to give him props for that. No matter what you think of him, you don't want this match to happen. You don't think it should have been as competitive. You have to give him props for that. There was moments where Pat hit his puncher finish where he kicks Gunther. Gunther no soul. I think he kicked out of 1. I didn't like how Pat was so resilient at the end. Like, he kept almost getting out of the sleeper. I thought it should have been over quicker, but they did have that to create more drama. There was also a moment where Cole got involved, and he did that classic spot where it's always the heel manager holds down the foot of the wrestler who hits a suplex on the competitor, and he lands on top of him, and Cole tried to hold down Gunther's foot, but Gunther got out of it. Gunther didn't go after Cole after the match. I still think there's going to be a spot where Goldberg saves Michael Cole. It might happen tomorrow on Raw. Eventually, we're going to get Gunther and Goldberg. I was thinking after the match, Gunther's going to attack McAfee, he's going to attack Cole, and then Goldberg's going to make the save. That they didn't do that tonight. It was probably in their best interest to hold it off. Do it on a Raw where you can build up a big match. I don't think it's going to happen at Saturday night's main event. I think it's more likely in Saudi Arabia at the Night of Champions show. But eventually we'll get Gunther and Goldberg. For this match, I thought it was the best case scenario. It ended up being very entertaining. I did like Pat McAfee's match with Adam Cole. He had in NXT a lot better than this. I also kind of liked his match he had with Austin Theory a few years ago better than this. I think that was at a WrestleMania. And, this was an okay match. It was better than this match at Miz. That match sucked. But this was, I think, for as low as my expectations were, it turned out to be the best case scenario in a way. So I'll give it that. Then we get a tail of the tape between John Cena and Randy Orton, our main event. We got a long video package with Imagine Dragons. Warriors was a great video package. It highlighted their history. Randy Orton comes out first. He gets a massive pop. John Cena comes out. They sing John Cena Sucks. And the crowd was awesome here. They were super into this match, as you would expect. You had I don't know how to describe this. It was a spectacle full of smoke and mirrors, bells and whistles, whatever you want to call it. A lot of chaos. Started off really slow, and I thought, wow, this is horrible. This is just like Cena and Cody. Cena is so washed. And yeah, Cena is washed still, no doubt about it. But this was still a very entertaining main event. They traded finishers for a while. There was a moment where Cena hit an AA, but Orton countered it into an RKO. And they both sold their own finishers. I think they did that once on a Raw where Orton caught Cena with an AA, started with an RKO, countering an AA and pinned him. Or that might have been in the tables match. I'm interested also to see the record between these two. I'm talking about televised matches. Orton's won a lot. Cena's probably won more, but Orton's won a lot. You had multiple ref bumps. So that was not something I was fully expecting that, so I was not surprised, but I was not expecting it to happen 3 straight times. The first ref bump happened, he gets into the turnbuckle, and then Cena brings in the belt. You had a few more kickouts. You had Cena kick out, I think an Orton kick out of an AA. Cena later in the match kicked out of an RKO. And then you had a second ref bump on the outside. So he gets rammed into the steps, I believe. And what happen now is the announce table gets exposed, and Orton ends up hitting an AA onto Cena, but he doesn't go through the announce booth. He just bounces off, and the announce booth side of the announce booth, the leg of the announce booth, just gives in, and it goes down that way. And you can see John Cena calling spots, which happens all the time. John Cena always calls spots. I mean, if you've been watching John Cena all these years, you know it's his specialty. He always calls spots in the ring. And it was so obvious, and it was almost taking me out of the match how many times he would do it. But he told Orton to redo the spot because it looked like shit. So Orton goes to the apron. He brings out a table from the ring, and they repeat the exact same spot. Cena has him up for an AA. Orton counters, and Orton hits an AA onto Cena, and it goes through a wooden table on the outside, which the fans love. That always gets a big pop. They cheer for the announce booth, but they really love the wooden tables. And then Orton and Cena are in the ring again. I forget almost the exact sequence, but Cena eventually kicked out of an RKO. And then there's another spot where Cena hits the referee with the title belt. So, and this was another referee, by the way. He gets knocked out. So you've had two referees destroyed. One ref took two bumps. He got into the turnbuckle, and then he went headfirst into the steps. The other ref got hit in the head with the title belt. So the refs are destroyed. You had Nick Aldis and a whole bunch of agents come out to try to contain the match. They're checking on the refs. They're trying to bring order to the match. Orton's really frustrated. He wants a referee in there. He RKOs Nick Aldis again. We're getting that match eventually. We're going to get Randy Orton and Nick Aldis one time. Then Randy just RKOs all the agents, your usual faces. He destroys everyone. This match had to have one of the most RKOs ever in a match. I can't say the most because I don't know that for sure, but he hit so many RKOs in this match. Everyone's destroyed with an RKO. Randy is ready to finish Cena now. He's pissed off. He goes for the big punt. Who's in his way but R-Truth? R-Truth saved John Cena. Orton looks at Truth, hits him with an RKO, and then John Cena hits a low blow onto Randy Orton. He grabs the title belt, hits Orton over the head. Refs in now. 1, 2, 3. John Cena defeats Randy Orton, retains the Undisputed WWE Championship, and that's how their final match, the last meeting, one final time, that's how it ends. Cena eventually wins the rivalry. He defeats Randy Orton in Backlash in Orton's hometown of St. Louis. After the match, Cena cuts a heel promo on the fans, and he's begging someone to challenge him. Now, after the show ended, they went to the post-show, which I saw on YouTube, and we see John Cena emotional. He's crying, and it's just weird. I think this was just a genuine moment. I think maybe it's really hitting on him now. I'm done. But he was tearing up. It's his last match against Randy Orton, his greatest rival. And he's tearing up as he leaves the show. And the fans are cheering him. They're thanking him. Even though this was a pro Orton crowd all the way, the fans were showing Cena a lot of respect, even though he's a heel. And then that's how the show ends. Now, they do the post-press conference as they always do. Triple H was talking. And John Cena appears out of nowhere. And Triple H just hands a reins to John Cena. Cena is about to take questions, and all of a sudden, R-Truth comes. And this is almost a couple hours after, probably an hour or so after the show ended. On the post-show, Truth says something passive-aggressive to Cena. Cena gets upset, so he hits an AA onto Truth through a table in front of all the media people. And that's how they build up to Saturday night's main event in 2 weeks, which is what we're going to get Cena and R-Truth. But that was Backlash. I thought, going in, this was a weak card. It was too short of a build-up, only 3 weeks after WrestleMania. And also, the build-up itself wasn't very good. Not impressed by the card, had low expectations. I think everything surpassed my expectations in a way. So I thought this ended up being a much better show than I thought it would be. I wouldn't call it, this great show or even a very good show. I think it was just a decent show for me. And with low expectations, I thought this was a surprise, a pleasant surprise, and a show that I did not mind watching. And I enjoyed this more than WrestleMania, to be honest, even though it's hard to compare. It's like a 2.5-hour show compared to 2 4-hour shows, and this is only 5 matches, but I was so upset with how WrestleMania ended. I almost felt like we just needed some sort of safe, basic show that we can watch, and it wouldn't, offend me or upset me. So, with that being said, considering the expectations I had for Backlash, which were not high, they were surpassed every way, and I ended up feeling satisfied after watching this. Backlash this year in front of St. Louis, which, by the way, crowd was great. All-night crowd delivered. I said that lots of up to. Last year was the Lyon crowd in France, which was excellent. 2 years ago was the Puerto Rico crowd, which was also excellent. I wouldn't say that this was as good, but this crowd was there tonight. They were loud. They did very good, and I thought they added to the show. So, overall, Backlash 2025, I thought, did its job, surpassed expectations, and it was a decent show.